Right, so I'm going to talk to you today about optimizing men's health. Basically, we're going to talk about testosterone, erections and porn. So everyone pay close attention today. No, only joking. Thank you so much for letting me speak today for Men's Health Day. Very exciting. So just a little bit about me. So I'm a functional medicine practitioner, nutritional therapist. What that means is I like to understand the why. So I'm going to help you understand your physical body and the potential root causes, okay? So just a little bit more into it. So when I was growing up, I grew up with quite an ill sister, and I was always wanting to understand why she was ill. No one could really figure out the why. I'm out of breath after all that shaking, trying to get that on. I think I need to do another shake. Normally when I'm doing a big presentation, I'll always take the stairs. That's my shake. So it's like, it makes sense. So yes, I'm always trying to figure out the why. So when I was growing up, I remember being quite young and asking my mum, if my sister ate what I ate, would she be well? Because I was always so aware of what she was putting into her body. And no one could really figure out why she was getting so unwell. So I didn't want to go down the traditional route. It just didn't really make sense for me. So of course I studied applied biology and biopharmaceutical science, which again didn't make sense. And then into my second year I realized, well, making pharmaceuticals I thought maybe I would figure out the why. Still didn't figure out the why. So I was searching for the root cause, and I was searching for functional medicine. So then when I found the course, I was like, this was made for me. This is exactly what I'm looking for. People want to understand the root cause. They don't just want to mask their symptoms. They want to understand the why so they can prevent. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. So we're going to go through some of the common imbalances, so understanding common issues, recognizing signs and symptoms. We're going to go through hormones. We're going to talk about testosterone. Yes, we're going to talk about estrogen. So you've probably heard of estrogen being the female hormone, but it's very important in males as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about addictions, how they can overstimulate dopamine pathways, very important to talk about. We're also going to explore practical strategies and how we can achieve balance. So I really want you to come away from today just with some key action steps that you can A, be aware of, but also make some positive changes. Okay, now we are going to do a Q&A, so I expect a lot of questions in the room. So whenever I'm doing a presentation, I always go back over my past clients of this year. So this was my past 50 clients, male clients of this year, and these were all of the common symptoms that they were experiencing. The ones underlined were the most common. So you can see there, anxiety, depression, thinning hair on the scalp, difficulty building, maintaining muscle, erectile difficulties, back pain, chronic pain in general, joint pain, chest pain, but also things like acne, bloating, changing in bowel movements, brain fog, forgetfulness. So I work a lot with a lot of high performers, executives, and mental fatigue, brain fog is really one of their top complaints, because they're not just responsible for their home life, they're also responsible for X amount of employees, which is a lot of stress, okay? Then these are the top conditions that I see in clinics, so chronic fatigue syndrome. Anyone heard of chronic fatigue syndrome? Yeah? If anyone feels comfortable putting up their hand if they've ever been through chronic fatigue syndrome themselves? Okay, thank you for sharing that. Chronic fatigue syndrome is a really debilitating, life-consuming condition, and it is very misunderstood. So a lot of my clients are literally doing their consultation with me from a laptop on their chest. They are chronically fatigued, housebound, bedbound. Then you've got some functioning fatigue, but also what we're seeing is depression, infertility, metabolic syndrome, IBS, over here cardiovascular. So when it comes to men's health, I feel like there's almost this kind of stigma around as well, where it's like, oh, just get on with it, you're fine. Oh, just be a man, it's fine. And there's a lot of focus on women's health. So that's why I was really grateful to speak today, because there is not enough attention on men's health. There's a lot about kind of women's health around hormones, but not a lot around men's health and hormones. So we're going to talk a bit about testosterone now and estrogen. So testosterone is the male hormone produced in the male sex gland, in the testes. It supports muscle, strength, stamina, healthy weight, bones, skin, hair, mood, memory, sexual function, sperm production, fertility, cardiovascular health, and estrogen levels. When a male's testosterone levels are balanced, you feel great, okay? It's the male hormone. For every 200 testosterone you produce 1 estrogen, okay? So estrogen is what sends the signal back to the brain to let the brain know you have enough testosterone. But we are in an epidemic of males having low testosterone. In about 50 years, male testosterone levels have dropped by 30%, okay? So these are some of the symptoms associated with high and low testosterone. So we'll see here on the left, so high testosterone, acne, thinning scalp hair, increased muscle mass, low sperm count, infertility, prostate enlargement, mood swings, irritability, even euphoria and delusions. So when testosterone was high, maybe you might have come into contact with it if you know anyone who's taking testosterone. And some days you know, okay, maybe don't go near them today because of the anger, okay? Too much testosterone can create that instability in mood, aggression, irritability. Low testosterone then, on the other hand, you've got reduced sex drive, erectile dysfunction, fatigue, loss of body and facial hair, less muscle mass, depression, decreased motivation, and self-confidence. And that's what I see quite a lot: depression, decreased motivation. And I'm going to show you a case study in a moment of a client, Paul, that came to see me. Estrogen then, on the other hand, so estrogen plays a very important role in male physiology. So it's important for bone health, weight management, mood, concentration, memory, libido, and the ability to maintain an erection. Do you ever have that friend that their bones break all the time? They'll go skateboarding and they'll end up breaking an ankle, okay? Or they might have increased weight in the chest area, so growing breast tissue. So that can be signs of high estrogen. Low estrogen then, on the other hand, think of the brittle bones, decreased low libido. I can see increase in cholesterol levels with low estrogen. But with the high estrogen, again, you're seeing reduced libido, erectile dysfunction, difficulties, the breast tissue, the increased body fat, especially around the hips and the thighs, mood swings, irritability, fatigue, and reduced stamina. So what are the potential causes then of these hormonal imbalances? So I mentioned anabolic steroids, okay? There's people that are taking anabolic steroids they're just buying them online, which is very dangerous because you need to make sure that you're measuring your testosterone level in your blood before you take any testosterone replacement therapy. Has to be carefully monitored. Then there is genetic conditions, so sometimes I look into people's epigenetics to really get an understanding of, is their environment manipulating hormone fluctuations? So obesity, so insulin resistance, so blood sugar dysregulation, high intensity exercise. So that sometimes people might not associate. They think, oh, well, I'm exercising every day, I must be doing the right thing. You can be doing the right thing, but sometimes overtraining what it can do is induce chronic stress and high cortisol, and that can actually put your body more into a wear and tear state. So more prone to injuries, inflammation, and you're just kind of almost like burning the candle at both ends. So testicular injury, unfortunately, cyclists, that can be quite common. I don't think I have to explain why. certain medications. I know my husband's rolling his eyes because he is a cycle fanatic. Let's just say we have 2 gorgeous bikes parked in the hallway, and it's the first thing I see when I enter the flat. So nutritional deficiency is very important. Zinc. Men need double the amount of zinc than women, okay? And this is because of testosterone. And we are so zinc deficient in our foods. Do you know the highest source of zinc is oysters? I don't eat oysters every day. That's why it's known as an aphrodisiac, because it boosts your zinc, boosts your testosterone. Same for women, gives us a boost. We need testosterone as well for our libido. Vitamin D, we are currently in the most deficient country for vitamin D, especially nowadays. So please look into vitamin D through these months, probably all of this year. So maybe the majority of the people in this room could be vitamin D deficiency if you stayed in the UK. If you got off, I see some very lovely glowing skin in front of me. So I think a few people got away to the sun. Vitamin D is also found in some foods, like mushrooms, eggs, fish. Very little we do need from the sun. Lifestyle factors, so excessive alcohol consumption, use of recreational drugs like THC, and porn, okay? Probably wondering, how can porn imbalance my hormone levels? I'll go into in a moment. Aging, has anyone heard of andropause before? Andropause, andropause. That's male menopause, okay? There is a male menopause, and in my opinion, doesn't get enough light shined on it. Maybe you might have noticed a male in maybe his 60s all of a sudden just take a special interest in something that's, I don't know, for example, my father, when he turned 60, all of a sudden he got a massive passion for tattoos. And he's got this random red shell tattooed on his arm. Every time I see it, I think it's an infection. And then he wants to go and have a tattoo with my husband, and my husband's just entertaining him because he thinks it's really cute. So it's, you know, men's hormones drop. For example, we just saw a fight there with, Tyson and Jake Paul? Jake Paul, the height of his testosterone, he's in his prime, fighting a male in andropause where his testosterone is at the level of a male testosterone in his 20s at its peak, or its lowest, sorry. So there's obviously quite a mismatch there. Now, Tyson might have been taking testosterone, but it still doesn't replace the effects that Jake Paul's levels of natural testosterone that he would have had. So andropause, very, very important topic. And then endocrine disrupting chemicals. Anyone got any ideas of what that is? No? Yeah? Give it a go.
Well, I don't know the specific chemicals, but I know they come from things like non-toxic pans. Like
Exactly. Exactly. Hit the nail on the head. So like the pans that are non-stick, plastics, out of plastic bottles, especially when they're heated. So if plastic is heated, that's when the chemicals leach into whatever you're drinking or eating. That's an endocrine disruptor because they mimic our hormone receptors. So what that means is it just can cause hormonal imbalances in our body. And we are exposed to so many chemicals nowadays. Now, I'm not saying that to fearmonger, because I do not like fearmongering. I'm saying it to be aware of it. It's all about concentration and duration, okay? So if you're in a high concentration of a lot of chemicals and toxins for a long period of time, then it'll have a negative impact. But if you're just having the occasional, you know, eating something out of a plastic and you're not usually doing that, that's okay. Like there's a company here, Thrive, which I absolutely love and I use weekly myself for the really busy weeks. They take really extra care in their packaging as well because it's always around heating foods in things. And their ingredients, I have no affiliation, by the way. I just saw them and I was like, great, because I use them myself. So we're going to talk about stress, lifestyle, and its implications. So let's talk a bit about dopamine. Any ideas of what dopamine is good for? No? Motivation, exactly. It's your reward behavior, okay? Can be very addictive. So testosterone and dopamine are deeply interconnected. They influence each other in ways that affect mood, motivation, energy levels, libido, and overall behavior. So what that means is males have dopamine receptors in many parts of their bodies. Eyes, you see someone who's really attractive, that will increase dopamine, which will increase testosterone. So they both play critical roles in sexual desire. Testosterone increases dopamine activity in brain regions associated with sexual arousal. So dopamine is essential for initiating and sustaining sexual behavior. So when dopamine levels are low, so is testosterone. So what does testosterone need? So this is a little bit sciencey. I tried to dense it down a little bit, but we're going to go for it. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It regulates testosterone production, and its effects on the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So what that means is the hypothalamus will signal what's called luteinizing hormone to produce testosterone in the testes. Okay, so that's just a little bit of science on how it works in regards to production. So dopamine is essential for initiating and sustaining that sexual behavior. So when dopamine increases, it will increase testosterone. So when dopamine levels are low, the testosterone effects on libido may be diminished. Now this is where addictions such as gambling, porn, it increases dopamine excitation beyond the neural threshold, okay? So what that means is it can become very addictive because dopamine has gone beyond that neural threshold, that you're not getting as much stimulation of dopamine from other things, okay? So it's constantly chasing that stimulation. So excess dopamine signaling linked to high testosterone levels may predispose individuals to reward-seeking behaviors, including substance abuse, okay? That's why it can be so easy to binge drink every weekend, taking drugs, porn, so on. It's that dopamine reward behavior, increasing testosterone, that can make it so addictive. So what does testosterone need? What can we do to balance these hormones? Sleep, so critical, really underrated. Men need 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. If you say you can get away with 5 or 6, you're not doing yourself any favors, you're just, reducing testosterone. Exercise, so testosterone loves resistant training, strength training, 3 to 5 times a week, strength training. Now that doesn't have to be an hour session, but 3 to 5 times a week of strength training can really help to balance testosterone levels, and some high intensity interval training. This can help with boosting dopamine levels as well to a balanced state, not beyond neural threshold. Nutrition, so a diet rich in healthy fats, so your omega-3s, looking at all your fishes, your nuts, your seeds, zinc, magnesium, tyrosine, which is an amino acid that is found in proteins, that is the precursor to dopamine production, okay? So protein, very, very important. Then you want to support that overall neurotransmitter function. You want to reduce sugar, okay? Fruit is okay, but reducing the sugar. Males need about 30 to 50 grams of protein 3 times a day, so that's about per meal. The way I like to calculate it is look at your weight in kg, have 1 gram to 1.2 grams per kg of body weight. Now that can be quite difficult. Is there any vegans, vegetarians in the room? Yeah? So you just have to work a little bit extra hard just to become aware of what quantities of the plant-based foods that you eat has that amount. You won't, if you're vegan, you won't meet all of the amino acids, so you might just need to supplement with some amino acids. Stress management, so important, because chronic stress increases cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and suppresses both testosterone and dopamine. Basically, testosterone and dopamine doesn't like cortisol. Now, there's a healthy amount of cortisol, which is normal. Cortisol gets us out of bed in the morning. Very important. But chronic stress, this is what leads to hormonal imbalances. So we want to stop the overstimulation of dopamine by removing the triggers. So if any of the things that I discussed already is one of the potential triggers to your dopamine, then it's not as easy as me just sitting here and saying remove that addiction, okay? That's impossible. It's about working with a good integrative team to help, whether it be within therapy setting, as Pascal was saying, you know, having men's circles to encourage different behaviours, having a community to talk to. It doesn't always have to be psychological support. So I'm going to talk about Paul. Lovely Paul. Okay, so Paul is 33. Or he's 30, sorry. Not to worry. So he came to me and he's low libido, low mood, lack of motivation, fatigue, gut issues. He wants to then train for his first marathon. I don't know how many times I see this. Then these are his own words. I feel like I've lost my sense of purpose. I'm easily distracted by work, TV, and my phone. Nothing excites me. So his main symptoms, low libido, fluctuating mood, easily distracted, bloating, heartburn, indigestion, diarrhea, irritability, low mood, fatigue, poor diet, poor immunity. So he always catches a cold. Whenever there's something in the office, he said he just always catches it. Occasionally smokes THC at the weekend, binge drinks, and late nights. So first, we looked at Paul's bloods. Blood's very important to check first, okay? That helps us understand everything that's bound, unbound. But I did some further testing with him. Paul's bloods came back normal, okay? So it didn't really give us any answers to why he was feeling so unwell. So this is just a very quick snapshot into the testing that we did. So over on the left here is another blood and urine test. So looking in the urine is like helping me understand how he's actually using certain things. So it's kind of like looking at your bank receipts. It's looking at how you spent your money. Okay, looking in the blood is like looking at everything you have in your current account, savings, stocks, shares, ISA. Useful, but you want to understand actually where it's going. So what's happening in the cells, okay? So you can clearly see here on the left, we can see the red, mitochondrial dysfunction. So has anyone heard of mitochondria before? Know what mitochondria is? Yeah, a few hands up. So mitochondria is basically our internal powerhouse. It's how we produce energy. Without the mitochondria, literally none of us would be standing here today, okay? So you can see mitochondrial dysfunction. There's a high need for support. So without mitochondria, he's not going to be making hormones. We need the mitochondria to make hormones. You can see here on the right, his estrogen was low, his testosterone was low. Down here on the left, you can see his dopamine was low. So I can understand then why he had no motivation. He felt like he lost his sense of purpose, low libido, fatigued. But over in here as well, you can see toxic exposure. So we know he smokes THC and binge drinks. On the far left, you can see oxidative stress. Anyone heard of oxidative stress before? Okay, so oxidative stress is basically damage to cells, and it can be in response and exposure to toxins, stressors, nutritional deficiencies, the list goes on. So you can see he needs some oxidative stress support, so I needed to flood him with antioxidants, okay? Because I could also see here, toxic exposure was high, oxidative stress, but methylation as well. Methylation then is what helps to signal things in the body, especially our genes, turning on and off genes. Very, very important. So we needed to support his mitochondria. I needed to replenish a lot of his nutrition because he was really nutrient depleted. So he didn't even have the resources of the fuel there to actually help make sufficient hormones. Okay, when we're looking at what's actually going on in the cells, we needed to support the mitochondria and oxidative stress. So we needed to gradually support him in removing the THC, which he had quite a reliance on because it helped to kind of numb him out a little bit around his anxiety. Low omegas, so inflammation, poor immunity. He doesn't have the omegas there to support his immune response. And then the dopamine. So what I want you to think of today, so these are the 5 foundations. So think of the word sense whenever you're thinking. So health that makes sense, okay? So S, sleep. We needed to work on his sleep, make sure he was trying to get 7 to 8 hours. So we had to really reduce stimulants in the evening, regulate his cortisol levels. He was drinking 6 coffees. He was drinking, I don't know how many cans of Coke. So we really had to reduce his caffeine because it takes 9 hours for caffeine to metabolize. Okay, so his last cup at about 2 p.m. Then we needed to remove screens. He was literally on screens, the TV on and his phone in his face, right up until the point he was trying to go to sleep. So we needed to reduce screens to help to regulate his circadian rhythm. So that was removing the triggers in his environment. Exercise, I needed to encourage him to start building up this testosterone again. So we started with 3 strength training a week to regulate that. Then we wanted to get diversity. So if you remember, he had poor gut health as well. So he was barely eating any fiber. He was only eating refined carbs. He wasn't getting enough protein at all. So we had to really boost his protein. We had to really increase his fiber, get all of his vegetables in, getting about 8 portions. Now, portion isn't just one vegetable. A portion size is about the size of an apple, okay? So making sure he gets about 8 portions. Increase his protein, as I said, and then the stress. So we really needed to identify what were the stressors in his life that was potentially triggering the high cortisol, adding fuel to the oxidative stress, the mitochondrial dysfunction that was going on, potentially suppressing the dopamine, testosterone even further. So we worked integratively, so I referred him and he started working with a fantastic therapist to kind of help him look at his environment and also help him find purpose as well. His job, he wasn't feeling fulfilled in his job also. And then looking at his environment, so he was relying a lot on Deliveroo, so I got him to delete the app. He was constantly getting takeaways because he was so fatigued. So he was reliant on takeaways. And what was that coming in? Plastic. And then also the people in the restaurant, you don't know what, their plastic gloves and everything. So we just had to get him back into, which I actually recommended Thrive to him, just to get him back into a healthier routine, okay? And then once his energy started to build up, he had the motivation then to start preparing foods for himself. Okay, so remember, this guy was low dopamine, so he had no motivation to do things. So we had to do it very, very gradually. And once he started to kind of get his own reward behavior signals, then he had the motivation to then start to build up again. Happy to say, 9 months later, he's doing much better. He actually changed jobs. He actually ended up turning his whole life around, which would have been really stressful for him at the beginning, but it's actually a real positive now because he's made really significant changes and he actually met a partner as well. So he's feeling good, let's just say. So I want you to really think of this and think of sense, because these are things that you can take away today and take action, okay? Sleep, look at your sleep. Are you getting enough hours? Exercise, are you exercising enough in regards to strength, resistant training to support these very important hormones, neurotransmitters? Stress levels, how many stressors are you exposed to and what can you control? Because when you are exposed to so much stressors, you can feel out of control and you can feel like a lot of pressure and it can feel like you're stuck. But trust me, when you take a step back and you reflect, there is a place where you have control and you can make change. And that can be something as easy as taking a moment to yourself, 20 minutes in the morning, going out for a walk and getting some form of daylight. I know we're not getting any at the moment, but when there is blue skies in the morning, take that moment and go outside and get that blue sky, get the daylight, because that will regulate your cortisol in the morning. That will send a signal to your brain to let your brain know, right, let's drop cortisol now because he's awake. It's the daylight that will signal that, okay? Now, I know there's so many mindfulness practices out there, And some work for some don't work for some. What I say to my clients is find the thing that works for you. Find the thing that makes you feel calm, brings you joy, or even puts you in that flow state, which kind of takes you out of the stressors or the things that you're thinking about. When you wake up in the morning, don't go straight on your phone to check your emails or the news and open the laptop, because straight away you're putting yourself into that zone. And if you are looking into other practices, there are, especially here in London, there's more yoga at nearly every corner. I would encourage you maybe to try. You know, looking into other meditative practices, deep breathing. Has anyone tried ice baths? Okay, it's not necessarily something I really do recommend because it is quite stressful, okay? Heat is actually quite good, okay? So infrareds are really good. Hot yoga as well. I personally don't do hot yoga because it is so stressful for me. I am the person who faints nearly all the time when I do a class, and the instructor never lets me leave the room, so then it creates more panic for me. So I don't do hot yoga personally, but I find some of my male clients really, really enjoy hot yoga. So just find the thing that brings you joy, lets you go into that flow state, because that can give you some of that control back when we are dealing with so many stressors. So if you want to have just a mini session, I am offering a 30-minute mini consultation for anyone in the room at a very low cost to discuss maybe what you're dealing with and maybe discuss options as well. So once you go through that QR code, it will take you into my calendar. So just be patient, the calendar will pop up and then you find a time. If you can't find a time, just pop me an email and I will get a time in the diary. Thank you so much for bearing with me.